Oh man! All right, hold on. Let me just get out of this shirt and tie. Get out of my corporate nonsense here before we get back to a real YouTube channel, guys. We're back where it's comfortable, back where we belong, back on Without Parole, far away from IGN. Probably not visit there for a while. Guys, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. 23 days, baby. Let's go.
You got a countdown. It's 23 days, 8 minutes, and 7 seconds or something. Are you that hot on it?
Yeah, there is a countdown here somewhere. I don't know why it's not up on the screen. Wait, where is it? Here it is. Here, I'm gonna bring it up right now.
I was like that. I was like that for like the first 100 days, and then I just got lazy. And I'm like, I had 20 something days left at this point. I'm so exhausted from it.
Well, I mean, I've got one.
Oh, well, hold on a second.
Oh.
We better start this show because right now they can't see any of us. So let's get the show started. And we'll get John up on the screen.
I've already missed it.
And then
I don't know what I wasn't showing anything. So.
No, not.
Brian, cue the intro.
All right.
Cue the intro.
This is PSVR GamesCast Live. We film live every single Monday, West Day, 2Ys, Friday. You know the deal. Every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. We do it live right here on YouTube for your viewing pleasure. If you don't like looking at us, I can understand. Look at these ugly mugs across the screen right here. Then, if that's the case for you, you might want to go over to podcast services of your choice and listen to this thing on Spotify or Pod Pimple. I don't know, dude. Have you seen the names of these stupid podcast services? There's you can make one up right now, and I guarantee you it's real. It's ridiculous. My name is Brian Paul from this channel right here, PSVR Without Parole, and on the far right hand side of the screen, it's AJ from The Underground, PSVR Underground.
What is up, Brian? What is up, John? What is up, Game Cats? Happy Monday, Brian. And I know that Mondays usually suck, but we are here, cats, to ensure your Monday sucks. Just a little bit less.
Squishing you. And a very special guest on this very fine Monday, after what has already been a fine Monday. Jon Hibbins is here from Psytec Games, makers of Windlands, to make it even better. John, how's it going?
It's great. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I've had such an interesting few weeks. So, no, absolutely marvellous to be here. I love being around you guys. I love talking about VR. I cannot get enough of VR right now. Isn't it exciting times?
I think we decided before the show started, it has been since November or December of 2021, the last time you were on the show. And so I'm very, very happy that you've made it back.
That long?
Yeah.
I feel like does that for 5 minutes in the VR scene. That
Well,
development takes
for us,
time.
it feels like 5 years.
Well, yeah, I know Psytec Games isn't fully renowned for its speed of delivery, but we're guaranteed to do it though. Small little indie team, but we'll get there. We'll get the PlayStation stuff done. We've got Windlands 2 coming to the Quest, which is a technical miracle, honestly. If not, it's incredibly impressive that we've managed to do that. So that's out on Thursday. And we're just very excited about that, really. And it's what people don't see is the amount of work that goes into getting something like that into the store. It's so it's been very, very busy for the last sort of 3 or 4 months. But even the last little stretch is really complicated. As you know, PlayStation have their, and I appreciate I watched the showcase today. The devs, and when you think about the work they're going through right now in terms of getting the FQAs for Sony done, it takes months in many cases to go through that process, and it's horrific amounts of tickets and stuff to do. So nothing but appreciation for everybody from a dev point of view what's going on at the moment. So, but yeah, I've been really busy. I've been out and about a lot. Been down to HTC to see their new Elite XR. I've been at events. And we're building games, right? So yeah, busy.
You say you're building games.
Oh yeah, stuff, future things.
Yeah.
Well, we're not gonna stop at Windlands and say no, that's it. We're giving up now. Never again. Although, there were probably moments when I thought that, and I think other people on the team probably thought that at moments as well. But no,
I'm pretty
we're
sure
building our
every
next
developer at some point gets halfway through it and is like, should we finish this? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, it's an odd world because, no, sometimes, honestly, it's quite a draining thing. I don't know, a bit of dev insight stuff, right? It is very, very draining. Making games is an incredibly creative thing, but it takes years. It takes a large amount of, personal energy to put into something. And you feel like a break after you've done a title because it's that intense and for a long period of time. So and then you go through the release cycles, and we're going through one again at the moment, and that can be very intense as well because there's a lot to do in a very short period of time.
I don't know if you see this in the I don't know if you see this in the chat, John, but Old Darth is asking you to show his VR headset. Show your VR headset collection.
Oh God, I've got a few behind me, haven't I? Yeah. I've got more than that. I've got them all over the bloody place, honestly. They literally, this will make you sick. There is literally a PlayStation VR on the floor beside the desk right now. It's like just sat there, and if you looked under the desk, what you can't see is I've got like big 3-screen setup and mics and all sorts of things, speakers, everything you'd expect from a pro gamer type setup. But I've got dev kits and like stacks of stuff, and I have to have air conditioning in here just to keep the heat down when it's. But a lot of headsets. So you recognise the Quest Pro. There's some Primax stuff over there, the Rift. I think that's an Index at the top there. Maybe, but I've got typically in my little home office. This is my home office. I do have to have a lot of headsets because we publish for most of those platforms. So it's now you have to switch between them to test things, but also to, I do play VR. I'm one of the game devs that is an avid fan of VR. So I play VR regularly. Various things. I suppose SimRig. I've probably shown this before, but all the Fanatec racing wheels and things like that. Recently, and you'll appreciate this, brought the adapter for that for Gran Turismo.
Yes. Yeah, dude.
Very, very exciting.
Yeah, if I don't know if you ever have time to watch GAMESCAST, but recently all the cats convinced me to go full on with Gran Turismo 7. And basically, I mean, not just buy the game, but also buy, Logitech G29 steering wheel and the shifter.
Oh, you went with the G29.
Yeah, and the whole rig to sit in with the car seat and
oh my God,
with the pedals and everything.
Yeah,
so
I love that stuff. That is my jam.
Yeah.
VR racing, my jam. It's a slippery slope. I've had a G29. I want to pull out one of the. I told you this stuff under the desk. I'm not kidding. I'll pull out this heavy beast.
What?
That is a direct drive wheel for Fanatec.
Whoa, dude! I went to that website. That shit's expensive.
Yeah, it is. But it's a hobby. I do race all the time. It's not. It's not something that I thought about lightly, but G29, and then you end up upgrading, and then you end up buying. I actually brought the belt wheel, which is a lot cheaper, and then eventually I upgraded to the direct drive, and then I bought a couple of wheels and stuff, and I've got all the pedals and all that. But no, it's amazing. I really think VR. This is an absolutely wonderful thing that's happening to the PlayStation 5 because. Frankly, the Drive Club and the previous stuff was just not good at all. And to get GT7 in its completeness in VR on such a good headset with wheels like the G29 and the Fanatec working for it, it's just phenomenal time to be a VR player.
You're talking to a Drive Club lover over here, so I'll just keep quiet so we don't get into a fight.
I mean, we can have a fight about it, but I am a purist when it comes to game simulation. Well, I mean, the best game simulator underline is called iRacing. There are other good ones, and there are some better, probably haptic feedback ones. But iRacing is a subscription model, so you pay every month, and you pay for the tracks, you pay for the cars. There are thousands of people playing at any time, and it's like where pro racers go and race. So you're literally, I've been in there with NASCAR racers and F1 racers where they've been practicing. So it's like it's a very serious sim racing thing, and that's awesome fun and by far the best simulator. And, they laser scan the track, and if your machine's capable of it, which I've got a 3090, so it's not like a small machine, right? But if your machine's capable of it, you can set the settings to be per inch replication of the track, right? So like by default, it's like per 4 foot or something, but it's still it's laser scan perfected tracks. Very cool stuff.
They if VR has definitely converted, I mean, VR has converted me into a lot of genres that I wouldn't typically be into, but sim racing, sim style gameplay and stuff has been one of those genres just because it's, I've always played games for like, I want to escape into fantasy worlds, into, crazy abstract worlds. But surprisingly, just there's something really satisfying and immersive about these realistic simulation stuff. And yeah, when it's that nice fine balance of simulation and just fun game, it's just it's next level entertainment right there.
Yeah, you are not kidding.
So probably enough about other people's games. Dude, I don't want to turn this into a developer interview, right? I definitely am thrilled that you want to hang out here and like talk about VR with us, because there's certainly a lot of PSVR2 news that happened today. But before we do, what's the general feeling about PSVR2 over at Psytec? Are you guys like gung ho about this? Is this going to be like your focus?
It's a very, very cool. I mean, we've had it for a while now. I mean, many months from a dev point of view. Yeah, and Windlands 2 is coming to PSVR 2. It is 100% being made, right?
Boom! You heard it here first. Windlands 2.
Boom! Windlands 2
for PlayStation VR 2. When?
Well, I don't think I've been that secret about it. No, it's purely a priority thing for us. There was no point us trying to do that for launch. There's so much noise in launch. It would have just been, 1 of 30. And, we when it came to designing priorities, we needed to get the Quest 2 out the door. You can appreciate it's a big platform and it helps us fund our next gaming. And then, straight into PSVR 2. So actually the PSVR 2 dev kit is like all switched up again. We're back into the testing of that. So it's like Quest is done, PSVR 2 is the next in the porting pine, and that's happening. So as soon as possible is the answer. I think it's going to take a little while. We're going to go through FQAs. I don't want to promise anything, but as soon as we can get it out, we will. And it's such a great headset and for it. I know you loved the game, and thank you so much for the reviews you gave us and stuff. It was awesome to see you guys.
We've got Mako XL in the chat right there, who's drooling over this announcement. He literally messages me at least once a week going, want to play Windlands 2? Want to play Windlands 2? And whenever I would do these Saturday night live streams, I still will in the future, but when I did these shows where the viewers would get to pick what I play, he would always pick Windlands or Windlands 2. So big fan in the chat. I know we got some here, and really exciting, man. We did enjoy our time with it.
Yeah, and it is a great game on the PlayStation, but it's going to be so much better on the PlayStation VR 2. You have the ones, you have all the full control of the air. It's going to be ideal for it. And I've had the pleasure of playing it, so I can tell you that it is absolutely exceptional on the PSVR 2. And we want to do as much as we can to make sure that we take advantage of the PS5 as well, because we can up the render scales and do some clever things. So there's a lot to do there really in terms of polish and just get it out the door and FQA. So it's definitely coming. You're just gonna have to be patient with us. It takes us a little while to get it to store, but we want to bring it. We don't want to rush it. We want to make sure it's really, really good quality port. We're going to do. I haven't really announced this either, so it's another exclusive. We're going to do some extra content for all of the platforms as part of the launch cycle here. So as a follow up to the Quest, we'll add some extra functionality.
Boom! Extra content coming to Windlands 2, baby.
You heard it here first.
We're just gonna keep doing that over.
Yeah, just keep doing boom. Right. And our next game is called. And here's the trailer. No,
almost had him. Almost had him.
Windlands 3 is a battle royale. What?
What?
Yeah. Oh! I think I might have hit the nail on the head here. Okay. So listen,
So we're not making Windlands 3, so that's an exclusive. No, we've decided to make a new IP. So and I can tell you it's awesome, and it's like it takes everything we've learned and it applies it to something new. But we've decided to do something in many ways more ambitious, but definitely more exciting. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, I don't know if you had to go more exciting to satisfy some of the cats here, because we definitely love Windlands 2, and a lot of the cats here love Windlands 1 as well. Some of you can say it's better than Windlands 2 just because of like the solitude and whatever. So I guess let's ask the important question for all of us game preservationists out here. What's happening with Windlands 1? Are we just getting 2? Is 1 ever going to come over?
Question. That's a good question. You know, I've got a lot of love for Windlands 1 and those that have played it. Yeah, like you say, it's a bit Marmite. There are some people that just don't want the multiplayer element or the battling. I had this conversation earlier, actually. The Windlands 1 was very much a parkour game. And it's not obvious, but the challenge in Windlands is really getting from A to B requires you to be mentally adapting all the time and working out the puzzle and the direction you're going and keep your momentum, right? And Windlands 1 was really, really good at that, but much too difficult for a multiplayer game. So we simplified, made more bushes and stuff for the second player. So there's a lot of love for Windlands 1, and if you've ever seen like the Jacksepticeye videos and stuff of trying to do some of the challenge maps, because they were called challenge maps, not races back then, and they are very challenging. If you go back to Windlands 1 and try and do some of those parkour maps, they can take you, even now it would take me an hour to do like some of them because they're like just really hard. But yeah, no, I've got a lot of love for Windlands 1, and you know, I'd like to answer that post Windlands 2 port. It's more obvious that we get Windlands 2 ported because it would just take much more advantage.
Multiplayer
makes and then you know what? It's not off the record that we would, you know, it's not off the
table.
Yeah, it's not off the table. Definitely not off the table. I think we'll get to the end of the port for Windlands 2 and we'll see where we are. Because we end up writing libraries and all sorts of stuff that are required for the PlayStation that we can backwards compatible. PlayStation 2 is a different beast, though. It requires its own SDK. You know, it's not backwards compatible. It requires its own SDK and a whole bunch of extra development time and effort to get it working.
Have you noticed, on that note, some, because you said you've already kind of started working on this, have you noticed a big difference in the process of porting to PlayStation VR 2 versus porting to PlayStation VR 1? Is there anything right off the bat that's just way easier? And yeah.
No. Well, the world is moving rapidly towards OpenXR, which I could talk about for hours, but you know, pretty much you need to be on the right versions of Unity. You need to be, or whatever platform you're using. You need to have the right SDKs. You need to, there's a whole bunch of stuff around mapping, control mapping, and supporting the OpenXR ecosystem, especially in the world, which is you're probably very excited about, in all the accessory tools and stuff, and be able to remap buttons and plug in buttons like foot pedals and things like that. So you need to sort of support all of that out of the box for the FQAs. So yeah, it's quite a lot of work, and yeah, it seems simple. Just plug it in, and surely you can make that work. But no, it's actually a completely different environment. But it's an environment that everybody's pushing. So as a side note, the Quest now, you have to get a waiver if you're not going to use OpenXR now. So it's much better to move to OpenXR and not have to go through the process of waivers and things like that, which they don't like giving.
We got a few tips here to read off, so let's get caught up on those real quick, with starting with Josh Cat in the chat with the $5 tip. Says thank you to Jon Hibbins for giving us developer perspectives on VR, really appreciated. Great job on the IGN gig, Brian. Madison VR hyped 4,000 meow. Thank you very much, Josh Cat, we appreciate you so much. Man Bear Pig Game Cat $2 tip says Brian, great job. Perp Game Showcase. AJ John Timer? What does this mean? AJ John Timer. Do you have any doubt with Man Bear Pig Game Cat better than any of us, AJ?
I told you he was real.
What does AJ John Timer mean?
I think it's AJ, and then he's saying John Timer. John Timer? I don't know. They're separated by hands.
That doesn't help us at all. Genetic Blasphemy, plain and simple, with the $5 tip says, I noticed that Windlands 2 was never listed as coming soon, and I think it was months before showing in the VR section of the PlayStation Store. Any insights? Oh, so yeah, a lot of PlayStation games before they're released, they kind of sit in a coming soon section on the PlayStation Store. But like, I think did Windlands just like show up the day it came out?
We just we had a number of technical challenges getting through the FQA process, and it was all about multiplayer. It's the first time we put a multiplayer through the process, and multiplayer, everybody thinks it's a Switch. It definitely is not a Switch. But when it comes to FQA, they have to go through a whole set of extra challenges, and and it's the same with the Quest, actually. It's exactly the same process for their TLCs. It's like, what happens if you cut the Wi-Fi in the middle of a game session? How does that gracefully handle it? Things like that. But also, they're very sensitive about encryption and privacy. So, if you're going to do multiplayer, you've got to have extra privacy terms, and you've got to have, you've got to publicly acknowledge your UDP stack and things like that, because we've got custom UDP stacks, so that you're not transferring private information off devices between them and things like that. So it's like way more to it than just like switch it on and put it through the stores. So yeah, it sort of kickstarts all these extra multiplayer requirements when you do that, which, to be fair, we've got our eyes open to now, and we've got much better at. But when we went through the PlayStation one, that meant it was eternally trying to solve problems that we weren't aware, we weren't even aware of, and we had to rewrite interfaces. And Sony have their cross-play issues as well, so all of that came into play for us. The common thing I get asked is, can you do a cross-play server? And it's like, yeah, we really want to do a cross-play server, and our future stuff will definitely have cross-play in it. But actually, it's quite hard to do, because you've got every platform has a whole bunch of rules, as well as you need servers running, and you need systems in the cloud doing stuff, and it's just an extra layer of, really, we could do with an extra resource managing that type of thing, like a DevOps or whatever, and that costs a lot of money.
Or if you're Kludge Interactive, you can just never deliver the multiplayer.
Well, to be fair, they're probably. I don't know that specific case, but genuinely, it's a lot of work, and it can take. If you've only got one of you or a few of you, then you're having to do that work as well. It can just grind you, and then
I've always had this theory that cross-platform also makes it even more difficult. And half the time, I'm like, look, if it's going to take you 3 years to release multiplayer, just make it just keep it contained to that one platform if that's going to speed up the process.
Well, I think that's the decision we had to make, and it sucks, because everything in my heart says, of course, we should make it cross-platform. We've got no defense.
Well, Windlands 2 in particular is kind of this, other than like some visual and controls, it's basically the same game, right? There's a lot of other games that have different features because of different headsets. some are wireless, some are wired. So it made sense for that one to be multi-platform, but if it could be, but there's a lot of games, he was talking about Synth Riders, where it's like they have like 360 modes that we don't need that on PSVR because we have a wire.
You can spin around with a wire.
Thank you.
I've wrapped it around my chair many
but do
times.
you really want to? Like all of the
Yes.
I don't know. All those things are solved. If you go to an arcade with a wired Vive or whatever, they'll string the wire from above you.
From the top.
It's just solved, and okay, that's extra work, but you can even do it on mounts and things. So if you really want to go mad, you can definitely do it.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's worth 2 years delay, 3 years delay, or
the wire,
or an empty promise.
This is a wire exclusive. It is connected to the right device. I'll sort of evidence that. Look, it's connected to the right device. This wire is quite light, extremely flexible.
And there's only one.
If you compare it, I can probably do this directly, so I'll try and do it. This is a bit of a comparison thing. Here is the Vive one, right? Here is the PlayStation one, right? So this is a lot stiffer, thicker, and generally not that light. It's quite heavy. I can feel the weight. Whereas this is super light, very thin, very flexible. So I think it's a great wire, and they've done an amazing job there. It connects to the headset through, sort of like goes through the back, round, and then in the front. So there's quite a coil protecting yanking on that front pull. More so than the Vive, if anybody's aware of the Vive system. So, it'd be very difficult to, if you tugged on the headset or whatever, to pull out the wire and cause looseness. So, I've spun around in this chair with it, quite happy. There's a trick: you just coil a lot up, stick it in the back on the back of your chair down there. Right, so you've got loads of it, and if it gets stuck, it just pulls out. It's tons of the damn stuff.
The next tip comes to us from Nick Milo, the Game Cat, with the $5 tip, says, "Hey, John, sorry my crew bugged you so much." Yeah, this was Nick. Sorry, John. After Windlands 2 PSVR2 launch, hope we made up for it by finding that Misfit Mountain collectible.
Yes, I remember that. That was a hell of a thing to find, but we did discover it and we did fix it. So I appreciate actually the support of the teams that actually went and found out where that issue was. Something during the something during the changes we had to make for the PlayStation version of Windlands 2 meant one of the tablets, just one out of 40 in the mountain, had the wrong ID, and it was like I think from memory, it was like a jungle one rather than a mountain one. So once we found it, it was like correct the ID, recompile, publish it. It was easy to solve. But yeah, we had a real difficulty finding which tablet and what the issue was. But we found it. Yeah. So I really appreciate that. Thank you I always appreciate when people do a lot of testing for us and help us. Steps to reproduce or solve those problems. We are a very, like I say, we haven't got a big QA team. It's us that test. So we appreciate any support we get there. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I hope you don't take this as like a slam against Psytec games or anything. We're just kind of used to developers supporting PSVR to a certain extent and then kind of bailing. So there was certainly a feeling when Windlands 2 came out and it had a few issues that like this is just the game we've got and we've just got to deal with it, right? It's like my biggest complaint that not everybody else was feeling was that like I'd be running toward the edge of a ledge and I would push the jump button and I would just fall right off the ledge. Like it seemed like the jump button wasn't registering like half the time or a third of the time or whatever. And you guys fixed that. And
we found that one. That was something to do with the clock speed. It was like there are some bizarre physicsy things going on there, I can tell you. It was written for the PC. The PC has a clock that typically 90 frames or whatever, and it was like this was an unusual clock speed because it's running at 72.25 or something. It's like, and that physics change meant that the button on the physics clock wasn't detecting all the time. But we changed, we corrected that, and actually fixed the problem elsewhere. You can now run the game at 140 hertz on the index. It's like because of that fix, it fixed it on the high end of like when you've got very, very high refresh rates. It became more sensitive. But yeah, I mean, we are really small, and while Windlands has been very successful for us, and we're really pleased with it. It's like we are really stretched thin. But I'm hoping that changes this year. This year, there's a number of things just happening that are better for us. Funding wise, is looking a lot better. The revenue from sales is coming through. And that's enabling us to put better resource in and have more resource available to us. And we're still doing stuff all the time. We work with VR Monkey on some things. They're doing some ports for us and some work with us. So no, I definitely don't intend to leave the PlayStation behind. Quite the opposite. But also, I have to be quite frank, PlayStation VR 1, we launched at the end of market. That was not a profitable thing for us to do. We have not made loads of money out of that. We've made no money out of the physical. It's covered its costs, which is great, but it's that end of market that there was so little money in the market. We've probably just about covered ourselves cost-wise now. A year after launch now, it's covered the costs it actually cost us to do the port. But we did that with the eyes to PSVR2, and hopefully we'll get the port for that done, and that will bring in enough revenue to justify that whole step up exercise and getting the app IDs. We also got the app ID for our next game in PSVR2 as well. So in terms of dedication to PSVR2, there's a process you go through to apply for app IDs within PlayStation, and an app ID. Once you've got one of those, that's like It's the holy grail. Once you've got that, you can make the game. You tie it to a title. It has to be submitted with a great big thing called a game design document, and you have to get votes from. I don't know how it works internally too much, but my understanding is that the US, Japan, Asia, and Europe agree that that title is okay for the PlayStation, and then you get your app ID. So we have got the app ID for our next game as well. So it's really positive.
Peter Check F with the 12 plantains. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. John, what performance increase does eye tracking and foveated rendering give? Oof, that was a tough one.
That's an interesting one.
That was all abbreviated. It was tough.
I have got some insights to this. I've been playing with eye tracking a lot. So as a developer, this is fascinating stuff. So I've got a couple of things about eye tracking I could share with you quite happily. One is it's phenomenal. I cannot fake it, right? So if I run a test environment and I put, ray casts or lines out of your eyes onto a scene, and I'm moving my eyes around as fast as I can, trying to hit bottles. In one scene, I've got bottles, read text. I found out some interesting things about my own eyes doing this exercise. I can record. You can detect blinking, which is it's actually got a blink state detection as well. So I cannot fake it. Maybe in the very furthest corners, it's less sensitive and accurate, right into top corners sort of stuff. But honestly, that's because you're stretching your eyes so radically, you're probably just messing up the sensors. But in general field of view, and a very big FOV, you can't fake it. It's very, very fast. And the FOV, I can switch it on and off in dev environment just to test it. So I cannot perceive whether it's on or off. So it's you just cannot. By the time your eyes move to try and detect the lower resolution, it's already at the high resolution. It's that fast. I'm sure there are better people's eyesight than mine. Maybe they can see it, but honestly, I've yet to break it. So from that point of view, it's very, very good. I did learn a few things about it. It uses a bit of the CPU. I can't tell whether that's my code or whether or not it literally is. But fine. And the other thing about it is that I'm seeing in a non-optimal scene for testing this, I'm seeing 27-30% increases in rendering. So I'm seeing some pretty phenomenal results, but it needs to be applied more to a more complex game, and even our next game isn't quite at the point where you would consider it optimized for testing, that type of thing.
John, this might be a question that I'm not sure how much our audience cares, but I certainly care. As a content creator, as somebody who's going to be capturing the PSVR2 social screen quite a bit for reviews, do you know what happens with the foveated rendering and eye tracking on the social screen? Is there a clearer spot on the social screen when you're capturing the footage, or is that imperceivable on the social screen?
I haven't tested that. I got no comment. I'm sorry. I haven't tested that. The problem is when I do the testing, I'm inside the headset. I'm not looking at the social screen. I haven't tested anything.
Well, I'm wondering, we've seen some of the people demoing Horizon Call the Mountain and stuff, and I guess it's kind of hard to tell. Maybe that's a good question for Wes or something who was there looking at the TVs and might already have that answer.
My understanding is it's at a different level in the pipeline for the rendering there, because you social screen gets spat out prior to the warping for the headset. So and usually from a single eye, left or right, typically left. So it's not quite what you're describing. You've got essentially a slightly shrunk version, believe it or not, because the headset's much higher resolution than what you're normally outputting. Version of your left eye, and it's slightly cropped. So it's that's my understanding of it from a technical point of view. I'm not sure how accurate that is with the PlayStation, but definitely across many environments, that's pretty much how it works. So if you think about a pipeline going, spit out whatever's, then spit out vertices and textures or whatever, forward rendering mostly, and then spit out to the monitor, then do your post-processing stuff for your headset. So it's really early in the stage. So I don't know where the foveated rendering sits, but I would imagine it sits at some point during the shader rendering, and if it does sit in the full screen shader, then they'll be splitting it at that point. So they'll be sending one to the screen, and then they'll be foveating out to the headset.
We got Wes in the chat saying
it's possible to do in the single shader, I think.
Wes in the chat saying you can't see it, which is a good reassurance.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me that you absolutely can't.
Yeah,
see
I mean the first one, PSVR always looked better on the social screen. You most of the time would look better, and so it would be kind of misleading sometimes even. But you'd have to think that this is a similar thing, like you said, the different pipelines where it's displaying it in a clear manner, which would be great.
I've sounded like I know exactly what the PlayStation 1 does there. I don't, but I do have a good understanding of the rendering pipeline for VR. And yeah, there's a moment where you're putting out a texture map to a screen.
Oh yeah.
So I would hope not.
This is interesting because John's here obviously to be part of this discussion, part of our normal GAMESCAST, but we definitely have a lot of a lot of cats in the chat who have developer questions. Do you have the chat up and running over there, John?
I sort of do. I've got the YouTube one. Is that the best one to get to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, ask any questions. Which one should we try and go through? Do you think online multiplayer crossplay between PSVR and PSVR2 games is possible? Absolutely. I don't know whether it'll happen. Technically, the game logic is always done via the networking layer and the game logic layer. So the main differences most people will be doing in gameplay is taking advantage of the extra resolution, foveated rendering, things in the controllers, such as the haptic feedback on these buttons or whatever, changing that, the rumble on the headset. But that's all sort of additive, and it's like not in the network layer for multiplayer. The network layer will be managing where the things are and what's where the avatars are and stuff. So I don't see why it couldn't be cross compatible. It usually, for us for instance, we could all of our games, although they're on different platforms, technically share the same networking level and the avatar level, and all the bullets and bosses and states are all in the networking level. So we can actually do crossplay between many devices as long as it shares the same binary essentially, and there are clever ways you can manage that.
Dan Kiefer in the chat is wondering what you think about hybrid games. Essentially, PS5 games that are made for the flat screen that developers go in and make PSVR2 compatible. Do you think there's as much of a hurdle getting those working on PSVR2 this gen as there was last gen?
No, I don't. I think it's going to be much easier than ever. I think GT7 is probably going to be the best example of that. The foveated render, so much more horsepower in a PlayStation 5. I can't tell you how much more toys you've got to play with, and that's before actually I think they've got good at it. We're not using much of the machine learning cores. I saw John Carmack comment the other day that you could use the ray tracing to do projected forecasting because you could ray trace the pixels out. I think he was saying that. That's my understanding of it. This technology that hasn't yet taken fully advantage of the PS5, like we're in phase 1 of VR. But yeah, no, definitely. I think it's as easy as dropping a new VR camera into a scene and you've got VR, because you haven't got the challenges. Sorry, it's definitely not as easy as that because you've got to take the controllers and pull the SDKs in. But from a theory point of view, you've got a lot of challenges historically just trying to optimize for VR, and it requires a completely different pipeline. Whereas with the advantage of FOV bringing down that a little bit, and the quality of the PlayStation being able to optimize. A lot of games now are doing like crazy stuff in high performance, in high visual mode. And honestly, sometimes you just can't tell the difference. The difference between 16 times anti-alias and 4 is under a microscope zoomed in some type of Photoshop app, right? It's like, it's hard to spot. And, so it's like a lot of the titles are pushing so much for graphics fidelity that actually just knocking it down a couple of anti-aliasing or using the new FSAs or, the new technologies like DLSS3 for reprojecting, all of those technologies are in the hardware and getting really, really good. And sorry, I've got very technical there, but the fact is that a lot of the games can just take advantage of that and directly apply it to VR.
We're going to go fantastical here for a minute, man. We're going to get away from PSVR2. And just talk about you as a developer and the things that you like, because Battle Mode Bainbridge in the chat says, if John could make a game on a licensed property, what IP would you choose?
God, it's going to be Spider-Man, isn't it? It's Spider-Man, Miles Malone, in the style of that. It would have to probably be that. If Sony would give me that IP, I would love to make that game. So just phone up. I've got all of your contacts.
That's
me in your database.
That's a great pick. But we last had a conversation up here, back in 2021, like you said, and there was a game that we were talking about. And I think I know deep down in your heart, you would want to make a Dark Souls game.
Well,
we called Elden Ring.
Elden
Dark
Ring
Souls.
was my game of the year last year, and I did complete it. So no, I am well into the From Software stuff.
So that's what
you're making.
Not all of it. That's what you're making next, right? Is Elden Ring?
Yeah, just need about 400 more developers to pull that off.
Let's do this, man. Let's come on.
I know I'm up for that. No, it's
I've been really craving. I'm not gonna lie. I've been craving an Elden Ring, Bloodborne style game in VR. I can't wait for the first person to do that.
I mean, I can be honest. I mean, Elden Ring did incredibly well. I'm surprised how well it did, right? Because it's brutal. I mean, anybody that's tried to get through the first two bosses would, you can just do nothing but nod, right? It's like absolutely brutal game, but it's got a brutal art to it, and it's a bit more forgiving. You can go out and grind a bit and get a few levels up, and then it's a little bit easier, right? And eventually you'll just get through the challenges. No, I'd love to make an Elden Ring type game, but Psytec Games is an action adventure, social action adventure studio, right? We've been tempted with lots of things, and honestly, it's just not gone well, right? We've had prototypes of things like arcade things, and we've had, stuff we've tried, all sorts of things, right? I could probably go on about that for an hour, but it all comes back to we all love. We want to build. We are building a social action adventures, cooperative social action adventures, and that.
We often referred to Windlands too as the Dark Souls of platforming games. So
actually,
you'll always have that.
Well, honestly, I think it could be harder. I only like playing it on hard, and you should only play Windlands 2 on hard. But honestly, I think that, there's a more brutal version. The reason it's not that difficult is because, and it's very forgiving, you don't die. It's got no, you just respawn and off you go again, right? It's because in co-op it would make it really, imbalance very quickly. You only have to have one player that can't keep up, and one player that's miles ahead, and it just imbalances. So you've got to make the levels accessible, and the difficulty is balanced that way. It's not apparent, but it is very balanced that way. The amount of shields scales with the amount of players, but the good players take down more shields, and the bad players still take down a few, so they feel like they're contributing, and it sort of balances quite well. And the aggro meters for the boss sort out the better players. They know that the boss knows who's the better players. It's because it's getting more hits, and that's more threatening. So it will be more
the boss fights.
It'll be more. If you're really good at it, actually, it'll be more challenging for you because it will. The homing missiles are slightly faster. It fires faster at you, and it's more accurate at you if you've got a very high threat level. So it's quite balanced in terms of keeping a group together. Not quite Mario Kart. It doesn't give you a blue shell and kill it, but it does. There was an element of trying to make sure that everybody's enjoying themselves.
John, do you pay attention to sales as far as consoles go? Do you keep an eye on that kind of stuff?
Well, I saw PlayStation announce 7 million headsets at profit. I read that somewhere. That was the last thing. Yeah, I like any good business owner, I keep an eye on all analytics across the board and watch the market very closely. I've got my own stats that I record from Steam and things like that. Yeah, definitely.
Well, Starlight, the Intergalactic Game Cat, in the chat says, "Hey, John, how many sales of the PSVR 2 in the first year," we're getting very technical here, "would make you confident for making a profit on the developer side? In which number do you expect? How many headsets do you think PSVR 2 set to sell in the first year?"
That's a very deep and complex question, isn't it?
That's what you're here for.
Don't overthink it. Don't overthink
it. Do you know what? That we haven't.
We're only going to hold it against you for the rest of your life if you.
I don't think. Well, I don't think we've got to the point where any VR dev can confidently release on one platform and say that's enough. All right, and even the Quest, right? unless you beat Saber maybe, but even they are doing PlayStation VR2 as well, right? So it's like the reality is that you've sort of still most developers, unless you've got a breakout crazy success, are going to have to release on all platforms. So I would say that in an ideal world, it would be doing half of the install base for the PlayStation 5, right? It'd be like hitting 25 million. That would be where everybody's making really, really good money at that point, right? The 10 million mark, you could confidently make a title for it if it's got anything less than that, and we are less than that with the 7 million. You've got to be doing other platforms as well, otherwise you're going to lose money on it, or it needs supporting by someone, the platform or some crazy investor, or somebody that just does it for the hell of it, or it's a low cost game maybe. But my prediction is there'll be millions sold this year. It'll ramp up towards Christmas with some big titles. 2 to 4 million in the first year would be a great result from an outside perspective as releasing on the other platforms as well, because you could bring it to that platform and make some money, and that's what matters really. Anything less than that would be dire, but I would hope it would do better than PlayStation VR 1. It is frankly a much better piece of hardware, right? It's like there was a number of things that were terribly wrong with PlayStation 1. As you know, the convoluted setup with a million wires all across the living room was horrific, frankly.
That's the first time it's actually hit me. Was I did some cleaning this weekend, and I'm getting all prepped and ready for next gen. We're 23 days away, and it's the first time probably, because a lot of people complain about the million wires, and I'm like, it's just the one wire for me, because I've always had it in the same spot.
Tucked away behind it.
But now that I actually have to move it for the first time in 5 years, I'm like, I get it. If you had to do that a bunch, yeah. I'm like, we're gonna look back at this and we're gonna be like, wow, how did we even have this box with this 6 cables coming out of it? That's gonna be one of the great things to leave behind for sure, with just the one wire solution for sure.
And I'm in the presence of, frankly, gods that have become amazing at using the Move controllers, right? They are not great controllers for VR. They're barely functional, honestly. From my perspective, they are pretty poor. So to replace them with what are great controllers, with joysticks, with buttons in.
If only we could see those controllers, what they look like. I don't know which ones you're talking about.
These
if
ones.
Only, those. Right. Okay. Yeah.
With haptics, and the buttons are in the right place, and there's good operation. Everything about these controllers is frankly, DS for the DualShock quality, right? And we know that that's a good quality, right? And that's going to make the world a difference. When the right direct thing to say is when people say to me, "What's it like compared to PC VR?" Because really, that is its comparison. We're not talking about mobile here, right? Then I think it's like having an index, right? But for your PlayStation, it's got all the functionality of an index. It's got it feels very quality like the index. It's got similar things, but if anything, it's got lots of things more positive than the index, right? But the index today is my daily driver for PCVR. It's a phenomenal headset, and to say that we're going to have a very low cost version of that for PlayStation, it's a phenomenal place to be, and frankly, it deserves to sell a lot. And I think one thing that Sony are amazing at is content, and frankly, the lineup, I wish it was slightly better. There was a couple of things that I wish were in there that aren't. Well, Half-Life Alyx, obviously, it should be there, and I have no idea why it's not, and it should be. But I suppose Valve are working on their own standalone. Half-Life Alyx will probably scale to that. It's like perhaps there's something there, but I am surprised because it would make sense for Valve to get that wide and far. They did it with Orange Box and stuff from recollection, so it's I don't see why they couldn't do it here. They should do it for the good of VR, frankly.
Despite hating the PS3, they still did it.
Yeah, they should do it for the good of VR, and honestly, if that doesn't come to the PlayStation 5, my thoughts about Valve will go down a little bit, because it's not. They need to be helping the world, and restricting that to one platform is, frankly, abuse. No, they should They shouldn't do that. They should get it in as many hands as possible, and frankly, develop more. Half-Life Alyx 2, please, because it is still today one of the best titles, if not the best, for VR to show off VR.
This is
so yeah, I'd like to have seen that.
It's something I'm really excited for, because the longer I think about Call of the Mountain, and the more I remember how long it's been in development for, and the studios behind it, and Sony's financing it, and this is really the other big built from the ground up for VR game that's been made, right? I mean, yeah, you can point to other examples.
Any idea how long it is?
I mean, we knew about it in 2019. Development.
No, how long the game is.
Yeah.
Because that's my worry. It's not that it doesn't look epic. Mike from VR Ace is a really good friend of mine, and he went to the studio, so I've had personal talks with him about that as well. He's like, that is like an awesome game, right? He's no doubt about that. And anybody else I've seen saying it's an awesome game, I'm just... How long? All right. If it's a 6-hour thing, I'm all in. All right. That is going to be incredible.
Well, they said if you beeline it, it's 6 to 8 hours, like just from start to finish.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
that sounds good then.
Yeah. For me, I feel like it's going to take 12 hours because I'm just going to hang out and like explore. Everything.
We're a 12 to 20 hour crowd over here.
Yeah, and I'm super pleased that I'm hearing good things about VR in that. You can pick arrows out of the water, and you can like everything's interactable and painting and things. So this is exactly. I think talking about Half-Life Alyx, I think the devs of that are a fan of Half-Life Alyx, and they're bringing through that essence of VR into that game with their assets, and that's amazing. It misses the God of War. I mean, that just seems criminal not to have done that, but perhaps they're just holding it, or it's just not ready. But has to be a God of War equivalent, right? Because they're the two biggest titles you'd want in the VR set lineup. And there's loads of other little things that just seem, but honestly, it's got some killer stuff, right? And frankly, there's a lot of stuff being updated that will really benefit from the controllers, will really benefit from the extra resolution. I have no problem with things like Tetris Effect Connected, one of the best games made, right? So updating that for PSVR2 and then bringing it to higher resolutions, and bringing the proper connected mode in and stuff like that. Hopefully they've done connected mode so that you can headset and screen. I don't know enough about the detail there, but just doing that is amazing. I had purchased Resident Evil 8 at CEX cheap, like our local store cheap. Got the disc months before I thought, with just the hope that there would be a free upgrade. And of course I've got it now, and it's been described. I would have killed, at one point somebody said, what would you like on there? I would have loved GT7, and then it gets announced. So I'm not disappointed with it, and I'm super excited about playing certain games. If anything, right, I have got a few games for the PlayStation because I've got developer friends that are making PlayStation VR2, so I've had the benefit of playing a few things. But yeah, it kills me the fact that I've got the headset and none of the games are yet active.
Yeah, you gotta wait a little bit longer.
They haven't published that version of the software, but I have brought an extra one actually for my lounge, because the dev ones get knackered and the Sony's ownership. But for myself, I brought the Ryzen set for the lounge so I can play and take. Because I'm a VR fan. I love playing VR.
John, before we get into some of the bigger PSVR2 things that happened today, there are just a couple more questions about Psytec games in the chat, coming from Simply Mincy, asking if you're just a one-man software dev team. And then Robert Lawrence on the opposite side of the spectrum, asking you to please make some big epic VR games. What is the size of Psytec now? Have you grown since Windlands 1, since Windlands 2? How's the progression been, and how's it felt?
No, this year we're scaling up. So there's umpteen meetings I'm having at the moment with new people, as well as working with people that have worked with us for a long period of time. So no, we're scaling up right now. So we're tiny. We're like, I don't know, there's less than 10 of us at any one point at the moment, but there's like 6 of us working right now on stuff. But we're scaling that up quite rapidly. So it's either contractors that we've used before that are coming back for various things, just timing, so people working out previous stuff. We've just got to that point where our next game is scaling up out of the prototypes type stage and the early what we call vertical slice into full production. So that is what this is literally happening as we speak. We're scaling up to do all that.
Nice, very cool.
It takes quite a while. We're very careful. I'm very careful as the owner of the business that we don't make things without being confident in it. We need to get to the point where we're confident in the gameplay, we're confident in the mechanics, we're confident in our art style and direction and what we're going to do. And the game design document is many hundreds of pages long in detail before you start the actual full scale production, because it costs a lot of money to make games and you're scaling up and spending cash. And truthfully, timing with cash flow. Having the Quest 2 out brings more cash flow into the business, which allows us to employ people. So if it's a great launch, we will be able to scale faster and deliver quicker. If it's a medium launch, and then it will be, or a disappointing launch, then we have to scale back our ambitions too. It's as simple as that. That's where VR is. Unless you borrow money or very lucky to get some high scale VR investment stuff, and we've not. I still own majority of Psytec games, and I've not been that attracted to VC investments, and we're not quite at the scale where we can attract the really big ones. So we're sort of in that middle ground. But hopefully we'll dig our way out of that in the next year or two, and we'll be growing much more faster.
PlayStation VR2 will save us all, John.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely hoping that it will be better than the PlayStation 1 in terms of its income.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah, for us, PSVR has been the strongest. I mean, really strong income, and then it's sort of the Oculus network, and then it's PlayStation. So it's not been that amazing for us overall. I think with Windlands 2 being end of cycle there, that didn't help. But I'd like it to turn tight. I'm expecting Meta to still be high, and I haven't seen the Quest figures, and I'm hoping they're high because that will support bigger things. And I'm expecting PlayStation 2 to take over PSVR from my perspective. I think that they've got an opportunity with this headset and the content lineup to do the opposite, and actually people will be very interesting because it's just a great piece of hardware compared to the first version. It's what the first version really should have been, but couldn't have been. It couldn't have been, right? It took them 6 years to get this out, but frankly, you're in for a hell of a ride. I'm very excited for you. I'm going to be watching very eagerly to see what your thoughts are of it, and you enjoy your games. But yeah, compared to the PlayStation 1, it's going to rock your world, I think.
Yeah, very exciting. You're also talking to the only two people on the Without Parole team who have not put the thing on our fucking face yet. So we're waiting for our worlds to be rocked, John, any second now, any time.
Well, I mean, I don't want to over-amp it. It's like it's not this most incredible thing that revolutionizes VR. It's just a very good headset, right? And that's what that's what we need. We need a very good headset with really good tracking. The pass-through on it, although it's black and white, is better than almost all the other pass-throughs. So you've got some wonderful stuff going on there in technology terms. And it's just a good headset. It's very comfortable. We know the Halo strap's really nice. I compare it very much to the comfort of the first one, but just a bit lighter and, just a lot more function. And frankly, they're the first proper one, other than perhaps the Quest Pro behind me there, that has eye tracking built in. So you can guarantee as a developer that you've got eye tracking. That is phenomenally good for pushing forwards what we can do with eye tracking. I found more interesting use cases out of eye tracking than I would have thought of. When I first started developing for it and thinking about it, I had this is just a gimmick, but all very useful for foveated rendering, which obviously it is. But actually, the more I can give you a really good example, right? I'm really big into VR interactions, right? So I've probably spoke about this before, but when you reach for a door, right? How many games have you gone where you try and get the door and it's like you can't get the door and it doesn't open quite right, and like, or you pull out your holster of your gun while you're trying to reach, it's just wrong, right? And you've struggled to open the door handle or have the intent of picking this item up and not this item. Eye tracking sort of adds to that intent. If your hand's close to something and you're looking at it, because you will be, because you're looking at where your hand's going to go, then you've got much more intent to, if there's two apples in front of you and you're looking at the right one and your hand's slightly towards the left but you're looking to the right, you can sort of, like, devs can just nudge, right? They can say, well, actually the intent is more likely to be the right one. It just starts feeling much more natural with basic, just a basic piece of code there. And this is bad to say as well, but for players that aren't as skilled, if they are trying, they're trying to aim at that character, you can see their eyes are looking at it, you can see their guns looking vaguely towards it, right? Then you can have skill level improvements and things. So there's all those type of things that actually they may sound a bit cheaty, but we cheat all over the place. I could give you 1,000 examples of where developers try and make the game more fun. But you can enhance the user's experience through these things, and that's beyond things like looking at menus and choosing things or whatever. It's just blinking and making things appear in front of you and all those type of things.
Don't blink.
But there's just general interactions become much more intent and much clearer. Eye tracking just generally improves anything to do social, face. There's a lot you can do. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's good to hear. There's picking up the wrong things in VR when there's a bunch of things on the table is certainly something I considered a growing pain, and I was hoping eye tracking would help with
that.
It's
awful. It's one of the key presence breaking things when you intend to do, your intent is there to do something and it doesn't do it, right, because the tracking's not quite right, or so anything that we've got as a toolkit to help get intent right, it deepens presence, and it's all about presence. We make games to make you feel you're in the game.
Well.
Yeah, throwing's been solved for a long time. Anybody that struggles with throwing should go on. Half-Life Alyx a good example. Turn the dev commentary on Half-Life Alyx. Listen to their throwing reproduction bit.
That's what everyone was missing, apparently.
It honestly drives me crazy because there's so many games that get that wrong, and yet Valve literally said, this is how we solved the throwing problem in Half-Life Alyx. And they go on about how they project the arc, and they even do a demo of it and explain it. And, it's like there's probably videos on the net and a GDC on it. So it's like it's this is going back in history a little while, but Valve came over to London and was showing off their Vive really early on, right? And they did a jam, and it was the worst jam I've ever done because it was 36 hours straight. No sleeping. 36 hours straight jam, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine and the hardware was barely working. The SDK was being updated live, so you can imagine that. And one of the things that was really interesting is as they were exploring mechanics and throwing mechanics and pickup mechanics and transfer mechanics at that point, which obviously developed later into Alyx. But so there's a big long story there. But yeah, that projection, I'll simplify it just because I might have developers on, and how do you solve this problem? It's like actually you track a much higher resolution the movement of the controller, which you can do, than your frames per second physics. So you like as many, in fact, future controllers are like 1,000 hertz, right? You track that, and then you take back and you project an average or a quartered average over that, then accelerate that quartered average. And that's how you do it. And it's very easy to do. Once you've learned how to do that, it's like throwing suddenly everything's throwable. No kidding.
You need to go host a couple GDCs, my friend.
Well, I do talk. I talked at PG Connects, but it was about Roblox and the metaverse, believe it or not. But the explosion of that is phenomenal. It's there's £600 million a year checks being written to devs over there just for Roblox. And my gut is Roblox is coming to all of this soon. Watch this space, but Roblox is likely to be on PSVR2 and on Quest.
You heard it here first.
Confirmed.
Yeah, my God.
Boom. Watched it.
No insider information, but I'm telling you, this is happening. But yeah,
I can hear the articles being written right now.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's definitely coming, and their cohorts are changing. It used to be very young people. I would say, that's not necessarily a bad thing, isn't it? 13 plus and all that, and I don't want to get into all that, but their cohort is now growing up, and they're going much more towards like 24-year-olds now, and they're having online concerts and K-pop things, and there's all. So it's not young people anymore. It's actually a growing cohort, and that's quite interesting because the software's getting more mature. Some of the games are much more capable, and so it's going to be quite interesting how that explodes. And generally, things like Fortnite and people go, the most spent time online right now is social through earphones, doing something together, and it doesn't matter what it is. Could be Call of Duty, could be Beat Saber. And the ones that get it right, have hubs, they have hangout spaces, they have multiple things to do. User-generated content's huge. No wonder Fortnite's getting into that, for instance. But and I think companies like Sony and Meta will continue to push down that line, and it will just get, because it's what we enjoy. If you look at all the people online and what they're doing right now, a very high percentage of them are hanging out in social spaces playing games.
Agreed. Yeah. Definitely was upsetting to find out that Tim Sweeney from Epic did not have any plans to bring Fortnite over to VR. But I do feel like that's... What insider information? What do you got, John?
No, I just think that's no plans today.
Right.
not this minute. Frankly, I think that's crazy, but it will be back at some point. It's just even then.
Yeah.
I don't actually trust a word of that. It's like as soon as something, we're in a world where, as soon as something becomes compelling, you can make money in it, you're there. Microsoft will be on it at some point. They were in the past, right? It's like it's just got to look right in the right circumstances. Of course, they'll be part of it. Because otherwise they're not part of it, and that's bad, right?
Right. I think if PSVR2 takes off, I think a lot of people will be backtracking on their words very quickly. Robert Lawrence with a $10 tip gave us an emoji that apparently, according to my notepad, is our sunglasses perpetually falling onto video game controller's proud face. That's the craziest emoji description I've ever read. Thank you, Robert Lawrence.
It's a very cool emoji.
It is a very cool emoji. Gentlemen, did you have a chance? This is my segue. Hope you enjoyed it. To watch the Perp Games VR showcase today.
Love Perp.
Me too.
Perp Games rocks.
So was that
a
resounding no from both of you? I love Perp. No, I didn't fucking watch.
I was there hanging out on IGN. I was hanging out with you guys.
Yeah.
Can I pick some favourites?
Of course you can.
Because it was quite interesting. I mean, there was some no news there. I mean, like updating Galaxy's Edge and things like that. It's good that people are doing that. But honestly, if you had a PSVR 2 game, you should really be bringing it. Sorry, a PSVR 1 game. And it was good. You should bring it to PSVR 2, right? It's like, so I'm expecting that to just be a pattern now. And just like Windlands 2 is coming, there'll be other developers. It's just getting it into their pipeline and doing the porting. I don't know. I quite like immersive horror. So Madison and Afterlife were really interesting to me. I've played a lot of like Phasmophobia, and like I can't pretend I enjoy it. Honestly, I just scream like a baby a lot. But it does get your heart running, and horror's a certain type of appetite. Do you like that horror stuff?
Dude, I live for horror stuff. If Windlands 3 was a horror game, I'd give it a 10 out of 10.
Do you like Switchback? Are you looking forward to that? Yeah,
I mean, dude, it's like Rush of Blood has been one of our favorite PSVR games since day one, right? So, I mean,
I loved Rush of Blood.
Absolutely. Yeah, and plus, you mentioned the... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Brian is like the number one horror guy. Like, I'm a pretty big horror guy too, but yeah, him and even Wes are like, they eclipse me. But I saw the showcase, and when I was watching it, it was like horror announcement. I was like, this is definitely Brian's like showcase right here.
It's not about it.
I thought he handpicked the titles here too.
Yeah. No, it's not a bad thing. I mean, horror. Yeah, just horror.
Well, the first big announcement, Ryan, the first big announcement was, in fact, very big, which was Madison.
Yeah.
Is coming to PSVR 2. And for those who don't know, I've never played this, so I'm going by, I just did a little bit of research on it. And yeah, seems very much like a Resident Evil / PT Silent Hills. For those that remember PT, the Silent Hills demo, this seems like a kind of inspired by that. It's a puzzle escape room thing, lots of jump scares, and seems pretty crazy. And it's a high quality production game. Well, what did you guys think about this? Because this might have been the biggest announcement that they kicked things off with.
Yeah. What do you think, John?
I'm seriously worried about the LED backs being quite good.
Yes.
Yeah, it's darker than it's it's scary enough in like a grey pixelated, like when you've got a good resolution black, and the addition of eye tracking is and blink and just generally voice is better. That's a little bit scary. Yeah, I don't know whether I can do it. There's an actual level. It's like Phasmophobia I can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's an actual bit where it gets too bad, right? And I
did
can
you
give you the
did you
example.
play through Resident Evil 7?
Alien Isolation.
Ooh.
Right? I can't do Alien
Okay.
Isolation. I love Alien Universe. I've read books. It's my, it's the nightmare I'll wake up with, where I'll want to go back and finish the nightmare off because I'm just so entertained in the damn storyline, right? So, but the Alien is like 7 foot tall, as mean as hell, right? Got this whippy tail and it's dripping with acid, and it's just a terrifying creature. And Alien Isolation, I think there's a video somewhere of me a bit screaming. There's a mode. Have you ever played it in VR? There's a mode that you wake up in a room and you have to get to the exit air vent or whatever. That's all you have to do. It's not even very far, right? But the sound and the choreographic of it, it's just like I can't do it. I just can't do it. And I've tried to put other people through. I've said those words, and they've said, "Nah, it can't be that bad. I'll have a go." And I've put them on it, and they've not got any. It's just like no, I'm not doing it. So it's like there is a level with horror, I think, where it's too much. Have you played it, Brian?
I've not played Alien Isolation in VR. I played it obviously on the flat screen when it came out on PS3 or PS4 back in the day.
Yeah.
And it's one of those games that every single time the conversation about games that need to be brought into VR comes up, it's Alien Isolation, Amnesia, Outlast, and I always throw BioShock in there as well. But these are games that seem like they're custom designed for VR.
Yeah, BioShock should definitely be in VR. I mean, you asked about the whole 2D porting thing. I think some of the best games I've ever played have been 2D games in VR.
Agreed.
Right? So it's like...
Did you get through Resident Evil 7?
Yeah, I completed
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Was it scare level?
Didn't do any other DLC. No, that was... Well, there were moments. There were definitely moments. Like where you're crouching under the floor and like where... The bit where... spoiler alert. The bit where your arm gets chopped off was pretty horrible.
That's not
pretty early on, yeah.
Yeah, but I recall... if anything, it gets a little bit softer because it gets a bit more ridiculous. I don't know why they have to have a ship in every... just don't have the ship.
Yeah.
It's not helping the storyline. But it was a great game and probably in my top 10 of VR games, and that was just a 2-day adaptation, right? It's how you do it that matters. It's like taking a great game and then applying VR to it absolutely can work if you apply the love and the rules of VR to it. It's got to run really smooth. It's got to have great interaction. You've got to remechanic things like guns and movements. And if you can do that, then actually you can. I played Resident Evil 4 on the Quest, for instance, and that was a good port. It wasn't amazing, but it was a really good port because they're giving it a lot of love. There were definitely things that were still wrong, like flicking to like 2D cinema screens for falling out of windows and stuff. That was just wrong. All right, but if they'd have given it more love, perhaps it ran out of budget. I don't know, but if they'd given it more love, it would have been a really amazing port. And some games are ideal for it. Any space sim, so I'm happy to see No Man's Sky come to PSVR 2. That will be amazing in there. And I've played that in VR, and they really care about their VR. So there it is.
that your living ship?
That is my living ship.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to Resident Evil 8. I know it'll be one of my day one type plays. But yeah, no, it's horror. But there are a couple of good horrors there that I'll probably check out. They don't look too bad. Add eye tracking to the mix and haptic headset. Walking down a corridor and getting brushes along your head and things. Ugh.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah, it does. I think that developers are going to get really, really creative with the headset haptics, because later in the show we heard a little bit from 17-bit, who was talking about going under waterfalls and feeling that in the haptics in the headset, and then also when you go under the water, just like submerge yourself, it's like they play with the sound and they play with the boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, there's this interesting. I mean, you can see I've got jacket behind me, so I'm into the haptic stuff, right? There's this interesting extra stuff. When you as a developer, when you're programming for that stuff, you are being very clever. Like in Windlands with that on. If you get hit with one of the beams, it sort of goes through your chest and out the back, right? And it's like if you make that ironically not too much, you make it quite subtle, then the user doesn't. It's a bit like good sound design, right? If you've got really good haptics, the user doesn't realize you're doing that. They just feel more presence and connection with the game.
Right.
And the headset's just like, it doesn't need to be a big whack in your head, right? Because you can turn that motor up so it's like vibrating your eyes, right? It's like you could really ramp it up, which probably has scenarios like where you get punched in the face or whatever, the way it makes a lot of sense. But, you could just, like you say, just going under a waterfall or whatever, just giving it a little tickle, and you feel that extra level of presence without even... Hopefully, good design means you don't realise that that's happening. It's just you are so engrossed in what you are, and the more presence you can give in VR, the better.
Just to kind of wrap up the whole Madison talk, it's so funny how Perp Games keeps doubling down on this the scientifically scariest horror game ever, like as if science can measure horror. I've been playing through this on
heartbeat on you.
Right. Well, yeah, it's exactly what they did. But yeah, I mean, I was playing through on Switch. The frame rate on Switch is not good, and obviously it's a small screen, and I don't even have headphones on, and so I got a few hours in and I was like, this is decent and this is going to be amazing in VR. So I just kind of stopped where I was. And I know people who've been watching the channel for a long time might not think this was a big announcement, because when I talked to the developers like a year ago, they were like, oh yeah, we definitely want to bring this to next gen VR headsets. And I was like, that's PSVR2. And so we've been keeping it on our list of upcoming PSVR2 games ever since we started making a list of upcoming PSVR2 games. But for them to actually confirm it specifically for PSVR2, they have a publisher, the whole deal. This is kind of a bigger deal, I think, than most people realize.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of the titles on that list are quite small developers that, it's like they've got to make a conscious decision in some ways to take a bet on a new platform, right? Because it's not assured, and I'm confident. I mean, I'm very confident with PlayStation VR2. I think, it'll do really well.
Nice.
I've just spotted Ian asking a question. Does John have a 3D runner? Yes, I do, Ian. 3D runner. That's the big disc with I have one of those. Yeah. I actually met the owner of the company. He came to my house once. So there you go.
You're not friends, are you? Because I will monitor the next thing I say.
Definitely would not. No, I definitely would not say we're friends. A French guy from no, he just he was very enthusiastic, and he provided some dev kits for that, and
yeah.
That.
So you pull it out and use it all the time, right? Just constant uses in VR. Just never ending.
No.
Okay, moving on. Jeffy Condell in the chat with the $5 tip says, seeing your room flipped in the presentation really fucked me up, Ryan. Great job. Yeah, I don't know how cameras work. I just submitted the footage to Perp and said, here, you guys do something with this. But if you guys didn't know, there was a cameo by AJ, because I had my
the cat's pointed that out to me, man. Yep. That's so nice of you.
I made sure that my poster was visible with AJ's little emoji face on it.
That's so unexpected. Thank you, man. That's awesome.
Well, I couldn't get Tornado in there because she was too unreliable.
I was there with you in paper. And now Tornado's gonna claw me and scratch me. Okay, no, we're good. We're good.
All right. We also get an announcement of Afterlife VR, which as our good friend in the chat, Awesome Tatum says, he's played it on PC VR. He says it's good, not great, good horror. And I think we're going to see a lot of that on PSVR2 because we saw a lot of that on PSVR1. We saw Paranormal Activity. We saw Do Not Open. Well, not Do Not Open. I'm sorry. We saw Don't Knock Twice. I knew it was a command not to do something. And so these games were plentiful, and I'm hoping we also get plentiful ones on PSVR 2, just of a slightly higher caliber all around. So Afterlife seems to be our first example of that. I think the other big one here, because we've talked a lot about sawing the smoke rekindled prior to this, and AJ and I will have other content on Sawing the Smoke Rekindled coming up on the channel within the next few days. The big one here, I think the big takeaway was more footage and a little bit more explanation of what Ghost of Tabor was all about. Did this one excite you guys at all? Was this something you were familiar with, or did this kind of turn you around on it?
I can be objective here and say, like, I'm not into war sims and guns, right? Mm-hmm. But I can appreciate this market. If you're like another one we're missing out of the lineup, Farpoint. Right, it's like there's this balance for me where something like Farpoint, amazing, right, and I really enjoyed playing that game and completed it. Whereas the simulation ones, you've got a certain group that love those type of games. So I totally appreciate what they're going for here. It's more hardcore gun upgrading, collection of guns, going out into interesting environments as a squad or whatever. I can see this being a really wanted to play game for those that like that type of game, and they'll be totally into it. I mean, there's some good other ones coming out, isn't there? Isn't Pavlov coming out? And that's a killer game. That's absolutely
supposed
fantastic.
To be a launch game.
Yeah. The PC version of that on, there's a good market fit there. I mean, people will love that, especially if they're into Call of Duty or whatever, those type of games.
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of, these military sim first-person shooter kind of style things. And yeah, this is a game that I think has kind of quietly been gaining more and more momentum. Lots of people are actually really excited about this. I'm very curious about it. I especially like watching Last of Us lately. It's like a modern military, shooter sim with in a post-apocalyptic world. Like the timing couldn't be any better. I couldn't be more in the mood for a post-apocalyptic shooter right now. But they look like they're doing a lot of the mechanics, and there's lots of good features and coming along with it as well that I'm excited for.
Yeah, I think that's my challenge. The more realistic it gets, the less I'm interested in, because I don't want to go to war, right? But like you described there, when it gets towards Halo or some zombie thing, apocalypse thing, or like Farpoint, actually I get very interested in that. I mean, there's some brilliant stuff happening here. PlayStation VR2 comes with very good controllers that attract. They interlink quite well. I don't know whether you've ever seen that, but that you can get fairly close for aiming, and you can get fairly, so that's really good for that type of game. And of course, I'm sure all the people with the, I don't know what they're called, Pro Tubes and things like that, I'm sure that they'll create adapters here, and you've got that level of tracking that, frankly, the Farpoint controller, I can't remember what that was called. That aim controller, that was really, really good. But now you've got that same functionality in, your hands, basically, and that will really make a difference for those type of games because they're all going, and that'll be quite interesting. And we've got other things on the buttons. I
like the survival mechanics too. I'm big into survival games, especially in VR. It's kind of like you said, how you get into the sim racing games. Like with something about VR makes me enjoy these things you kind of have to keep up with. To me, they're more like real gameplay mechanics and just little details that are nice.
And isn't that one where you go lay bombs and stuff? Isn't that coming as well? I can't remember what the name of that one is. PSVR Frank went off to work for them.
Firewall
Ultra.
Firewall, yeah, Firewall's coming. So, and I think there'll be, eventually there'll be a Firewall 2 as well, right? It's like, it's like those games are really, really cool. No, they're good games, and this is an absolute new lease of life for it, because frankly, the old controllers weren't great for those things. The aim was pretty good, but still pretty poor, because if you occluded it or got too low or got the wrong angles, and it wasn't great. Whereas you'll get accurate tracking and shooting out of this now, which makes all the difference in those type of games.
Yeah, this goes to Tabor. I've been saying Tabor forever, and Tabor seems to be the proper pronunciation. Yeah, I always love post-apocalyptic settings. AJ, you nailed it. Survival elements are what I'm looking forward to the most. They talked about having like a personal bunker that's like that you expand as you go. These are the kind of things like progression systems and feeling more powerful hours into the game than I did at the beginning. I've said that 1,000 times on GamesCast. This sounds like it's going to deliver that, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the game goes through the development process. If anybody's not familiar, like if you've ever played Tarkov on PC, this is the game that is that game inspired this game like big time. So
it looks great, and honestly, I hope it turns out like what it looks. If the mechanics are good on the gun with all the reloads and all that, yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah. It has lots of potential at the very least. That's the lowest thing I could say about it, is that it looks like it has lots of potential.
It's probably the one on the list that struck the most as being, it'll probably sell the most to me. Because like when you look at everything, I think that would just
there was another one, Brian, that really caught my interest though. I don't know if it did for you as well.
I mean, if as long as it's not Synth Riders, we can talk about it as long as you want.
It wasn't Synth Riders.
Synth Riders has multiplayer, AJ. We finally got multiplayer after getting screwed on PSVR 1. Okay, but let me guess. VR Skater by Deficit Games.
That is it, absolutely. Now, props to the multiplayer on Synth Riders, because that is literally the best part of that game.
Also remastered. And the backgrounds look a lot better on that game.
It was. I thought it was a good looking game. I just thought it was missing its most vital mechanic, which was the multiplayer. I mean, it's like rhythm game Mario Kart. It is really, really good. So that is super exciting. Did they say the player count on that, by the way?
They didn't say the player count.
Okay.
I clocked that there were a lot of tracks. 50 odd. 58 was it, or something like that?
Yeah,
a lot of tracks.
That's
cool.
But Brian, you are correct. It is VR Skater, man. Now I saw a lot of people in the comments and stuff when this popped up. They seem, they mostly, in my opinion, seem very interested in this. We've been interested in this game as well for a while now, because I really think extreme sports is another thing that we are sorely lacking in the genre and on the VR platform. And let me tell you, man, I did see like one or two comments saying, "Oh, I wish you didn't have to use your hands." Well, let me tell you, man, you should be very, very happy that you are using your hands to control this game. Because
is that the Tony Hawk ride board?
This is the Tony Hawk ride board, and let me say,
show over.
He's out. I have broken the show. Let me say, I mean, first of all, we played Tony Hawk games. We played all skateboard games with our hands, and here you're doing some different motions and stuff. But let me say, they have done some experimentations with skateboards for immersion and tech, and it didn't go so well. So I'm really, really excited about this game. I'm expecting it's a small indie team, so I've got my expectations in check, but I'm very, very excited about this, and I need a game like this in my life.
So
I'm not surprised.
I was actually just trying.
If you like skateboarding, there aren't that many around. But the remastered version of Tony Hawk's was phenomenal.
There you go.
Loved going back into that.
Well, for sure.
I think one of the great things that we all remember about Tony Hawk on PS1 was the soundtrack. And so when they were showing this game off, and I apologize for having the old trailer here, but because the new one especially shows just how cool it is to do the tricks with your hands. One of the things that they were showing off today was the soundtrack for this game. And I wasn't terribly familiar with the new bands that were chosen, but it felt very Tony Hawk to me. I was like, it was the same type of energy. Yep. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to play this game with the soundtrack at full blast, because I feel like I'm going to discover some new bands that I like while playing this.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks very interesting. You like pull your hands to move, and then you're basically flicking them and doing stunts, right?
Yeah.
So it looks like, to me, it looks very Tony Hawksy, and there's nothing wrong with that chaining. And there's, I love that feeling. When you chain a whole bunch of moves together and then pull off a big land, it's like, oof, great.
Yeah.
So if it captures any of that Tony Hawk's type skateboarding stuff, it's got me.
When this first got revealed, I was paying close attention to the trailer and saying, "Are we just going in a straight line from the beginning of the course to the end of the course?" That does seem like what you're doing. It is very, that's it. You're taking care of the tricks in your pace and your speed. But watching it again today, I was like, this is actually exactly what I want. Maybe someday when the formula evolves or whatever, and we can kind of go out on our own and twist and turn all around the city. But this is a great jumping off point for this genre that I can't believe we didn't get last gen. This is crazy.
Well, it's got. I mean, this is rooted in a very successful game design. It's like the side-scrolling, where you jump across stuff. Beat Saber started that way. Have you ever seen the first Beat Saber game? It's called Beat something or other. It's actually a side-scroller on a mobile where you jump and hop, and you go onto the blue and the red lines. It's actually the same team. I'm not making that up. Beat Saber was their mobile game. I can't remember what it's called. But this and then there's Ollie Ollie. Which is a classic example of this. Side-scrolling 2D where you're jumping and you're doing tricks along the route, and if you crash, you crash. So
these are the small beginnings, right? These are the small beginnings.
The design here is set in what I would describe as a very successful model. Of that, if you're capturing that like Ollie Ollie in that straight line, with Tony Hawk's like chaining in it, then actually it's probably going to play really, really well and be very addictive.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I think it is perfectly acceptable to have some designs like this. We're still early in VR development, becoming like video games, and I think stuff like this design is totally acceptable for now. 20 years, 25 years from now, we're gonna want open world games where we're grabbing the board and flipping it, or with our feet, using our feet tracking to do stuff. But right now, totally fun. It's a game at the end of the day.
Yeah. Let's take care of one tip, and then we got to start wrapping up the show a little bit. We got Genetic Blasphemy, plain and simple, with the $5 tip. Says, for me, PSVR2 won't be complete until Dreams is supported. Have you tried creating with it at all? Great interview. You guys are so damn great. John,
you're so damn great.
Oh, no, AJ, you're so... you weren't talking to me. John, have you played around with Dreams at all?
Not enough. Yes, but not enough. I mean, I think that is incredible, and God, I hope they bring that to PSVR too.
Yeah. I mean,
they're not that far from me. They're over in Guildford, so it's not far. And there's a big group of people in Guildford, I know, but not enough, honestly.
Hopefully it comes to PSVR 2 because... I mean, they did way more with PSVR 1 than we ever could have imagined. One of the greatest game creation toolkits I've ever seen. Sadly, I have not had time.
Much more power on. Yeah. Maybe a number 2.
Yeah. Or just...
But they're building something, right? Media Molecule, aren't they? Is that right?
Just something to take advantage of the new Sense controllers and, I don't know, just the new headset. Something. I don't feel like it has to be a brand new platform, but I do think it's time to take advantage of the PlayStation 5 more than just the dynamic resolution does. And guys,
Chameleon Run was the game that they made before Beat Saber, by the way.
Wait, what was it called?
Chameleon, CHAMELEON Run. Chameleon Run.
Chameleon?
Well, yeah, probably.
I can't.
But anyway, it's that.
You explained it. You spelled it. I still. You're kidding me.
Check that out. Maybe put it up in the video. Show others that. Yeah, that was their game before. My understanding is that their game before Beat Saber, but it's so if you see that game, you sort of can see where the roots of Beat Saber come from.
Wow.
It is still available, by the way. You can get it on you.
It's by Jan Splitowski. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to let me actually download it. Probably not on the fly here.
Play it on your own phone. Check that out. You'll see the similarities and the side, but it's a side-scrolling. It's like it's got to get the timing.
See, right. Small beginnings, humble beginnings, man. Everything's got to start from somewhere.
Yeah, and look at the AAA games Beat Games is creating now. Oh wait. I mean, that's not a burn. Like Beat Saber, as good as it is,
you can't really burn.
It's a very simple. It's a very simple concept that they fucking struck gold with.
Beat Saber 2. It's like I predict that.
It's pizza.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I got the trailer. We can bring Chameleon right up.
Let me predict another one. I could go crazy on this. Pistol Whip will make a John Wick game because it's got to happen. What else? There's so many things you could predict right now.
Gecko Man, of all people.
There's definitely going to be Monkey Tag on the PlayStation VR 2. It's got to come to it, surely.
I'm watching Chameleon run.
No insider knowledge on any of this, by the way. I'm just guessing.
I'm just like, man, we just need a shit ton of endless runners on PSVR 2. Like,
do you know what? There is Beat Saber is an endless runner, right?
It is. I mean,
it's just using different mechanics, right? But it's an endless runner. You get, well, not quite endless. You get to the end of the level. But most endless runners, you get to the end.
I want a jump button. Like, give me platforms to jump over. Give me a jump button with Beat Saber.
I do not want an endless version of Beat Saber. At those 2.5 minutes are pure hell. When I get to the end, I'm ready to stop.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if you saw blocks
back to back, just endless runner? Beat Saber, go all the tracks in a loop. It's never ending.
But could you imagine if we had a jump button in Beat Saber and you saw blocks that were like way high up, and so you had to like jump and then slice down at them, and like, I mean, what a brand new mechanic that would bring to the table. We need a jump button in Beat Saber. Come on, guys, get on it.
Yeah,
craziness.
And
a sword throwing mechanic
and feet kicking. Oh no, I saw that. That was done, wasn't it?
Feet Saber.
Everything's been done there. Feet Saber. Yeah, you can strap Vive things to your feet and kick the blocks like with swords on your feet. I think I've seen it. It's a thing.
I've suddenly lost interest in Beat Saber 2.
Well, Beat Saber's an awesome game. There's no denying that, right? And PlayStation VR 2, it's going to be even better, right? You're going to have better controls, sampling faster with more accuracy. It's going to be just great on that platform and more vivid. And they didn't quite get the multiplayer right. I'm very disappointed with the multiplayer. There's so many things I think are wrong about it, but you know, I'm glad it's there, but it's not right. Just even silly things like,
it's a starting point.
When you're on the pedestal,
right?
Yeah, when you're on the pedestal at the end, you're like looking at a mirror and you can't. It doesn't have your score there. It's like just I'm on the pedestal. Show me the scores. Who's won, right? And then there's not enough interaction with the other players. You should be able to just doesn't. And there's no, when you're playing 2-player, sometimes you just want to do it cooperatively. So where's the?
It's like you said earlier. It's like you said earlier. There's been this, uprising of social games, and
where's the hub? Where's the bit that you can just hang out and chat, then go and play Beat Saber? It's like it's missing so many little bits.
Yeah, and like AJ compared Synth Riders multiplayer to Mario Kart earlier. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I want to see in Beat Saber multiplayer. We've already seen small blocks, like that's a mod that you can turn on, right? So like if you suddenly turn the blocks small on your opponents, or if you all the blocks flip upside down and you got to do something that
you can make you can make the block speed up. You can have Space Invaders come and shoot it at your opponents. There's so many options shit in there.
So many.
It's
options.
So cool.
Yep.
It's really really good.
Do you change the colors on somebody? Like it's no longer blue and red. It's like fucking black and white. And you're just like, oh, I don't know.
I mean, you're describing Beat Saber 2. We should make it
with a jump button. Although Looper, the Underground Game Cat with the €2 says no jump button for you. Jump physically, which I mean, my ceilings are kind of low. I don't think that's going to work. So, guys, I would love to sit here all night and hang out all night, but it is time for PSVR 20 questions. Do you know how this works, John?
Yeah, I remember it from before, but you might as well remind me because
I'm gonna put 6 minutes on the clock, and you and AJ have 20 yes or no questions to figure out what PSVR game I'm thinking of.
Oh yeah,
and pay close attention to the chat because they're pretty good about helping out.
They're your lifeline.
They are. They really are. They'll help you with good questions, and they'll give you good suggestions. Step_ with the 5 Chieftain says a PlayStation Home sequel would be the best social space. Sony, bring it on. Agreed, man. PlayStation Home is the dream. Also,
they'd have to really execute it, though. They'd have to really execute it. Otherwise, it's going to be something that everybody asks for, and then that nobody actually plays.
Well, I know a little bit of history here. N-Dreams prior to was the maintainer of the home, and N-Dreams has had huge investment, very close to Sony, even making Ghostbusters for them. It could happen.
Yeah, we've talked to. I remember them bringing that up, and I don't know. No word on it yet. No, nothing yet. But never say never.
On your mark. 6 minutes on the clock. Get Des. Go.
Has this developer made other PSVR games?
Yes, they have.
Is this a multiplayer game?
It's not multiplayer.
Is this? Are the developers in the room right now?
I'm the only one here. Nope.
No, okay, no. That wasn't my question. Is the developer? Is anybody that worked on the game on the GAMESCAST stream right now?
Yes.
Crystal Rift.
Holy shit! Hold on. Oh, wait. He just said
Crystal Rift. Yeah, it's not going to be Windlands.
We can get this in 3. We can get this in 3. It could be Windlands, or it's going to be Crystal Rift. Oh, which one do we want to do? We can get this in 3 guesses.
That was 3 guesses already. So, I don't know.
You got it? He got it?
Who got it?
It's got to be Crystal Rift because he wouldn't do Windlands. It's too obvious. But I'm very proud of Crystal Rift. It was cut my teeth on Unity, and there was a very small team. That was an awesome game for me at the time.
It is Crystal Rift. You guys nailed it. Yes! That was really fast.
We got it in 3. Yeah. Right. Suck it, Wes. No, I think Wes has his 3 as well.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a record, John. That's a record.
It was a good. Yeah, that was clever. And AJ really got that. AJ really got that. No, because we could have definitely gone around in circles before guessing that.
He loves to do shit like this all the time. Yeah. Like he'll like pick the game that came out like yesterday. Like he'll do that shit. So I was like, we gotta try this first.
We have some love for Crystal Rift in the chat. Mike Kelly VR says, I love Crystal Rift. I really do. It's looking done.
That was teamwork.
It's looking Dungeon Master. I don't know what that meant.
High five, John.
Yeah,
High five.
Those that love Dungeon Master get it, but it was quite a small audience. You have to be my age for starters to even know what Dungeon Master is. and I only made it because, absolute God's honest truth, I made it as a passion project. I wanted to make Dungeon Master in VR, so that's what happened. Nice. No, I'm very proud of it, and I learned a lot, and that's the important thing. I learned publishing for the PlayStation. I learned, Unity coding for version 5. I learned VR pipelines. I learned, it was really, really, really cutting.
So you're saying it's not completely off the table to see Crystal Rift 2?
No, I don't think so. A Crystal Rift 2, wow.
You heard it here first.
It would have to be a passion project. No, there's so much more you could do with that, but it's niche, and I wouldn't want to do that.
The keeper of the 20 question records, Looper the Underground Game Cat, ran with the €2, says West didn't have 3. The previous record was 4.
Oh, new record! Then but this was a great team effort because I was actually thinking Windlands 1. So you got into Brian's head like Magneto, and
we'd already got to single player,
and you were like, he's gonna make it obvious, but not that obvious.
Yeah. Well, I could even forget that Crystal Rift's out sometimes. It's like a 10-year-old game now or something. It's like it was quite a while ago. So no, fair play, Brian. It nearly worked, but in practice failed miserably, and we got the record. So it was a good shot though.
All right.
That's probably why we got it, AJ. We just knew that we were both connected to Brighton. Like, he's going to try this one. Yeah, It's definitely that one.
It's certainly not Loctite up here. There's a lot of airflow coming and going. Guys, thank you so much. John, thank you for hanging out with us on this very special day, on this very special episode of GamesCast Live, man. We appreciate you being here.
It's not been long enough. I feel like we could talk about all those games more. I really want to talk about PlayStation VR 2 with you. Have me on post the launch.
Yeah.
So we could talk about stuff because I'd love to do that. But yeah, I honestly, I'm super excited for it. Everybody's going to love it. It's a great piece of hardware. If you're on the shelf, just like the content's going to be amazing and the hardware's great. Yeah, please do that. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to be here. And if anybody at all is interested in Windlands 2 on the Quest, it's out on Thursday. And I would love for you to support us and help us make more games. It's rating really well. You can sort of see that on YouTube already. People are loving it over there. It's like PC perfect port of it. So that would really help us. And if you can't buy it, then then fair enough. Give me a ping. You never know. You might get lucky with a key. I'm a nice guy. I'm going to get inundated now, aren't I? Like 2,000 keys. Should they be a random pick?
Where are you most active? Should they follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter at Hibbins is a pretty good place. Pretty active over there. That's probably where.
And what is it? Is it like at Psytec Games or is it Windlands? What is the?
At Windlands is also there. Yeah.
Okay. So everybody follow.
Got all the socials
at Windlands.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. And if you do buy it, please rate it. Ratings really help.
Please don't harass him for a key. Don't. Right.
No, if I get a load of harassment, I'll put it all into a pot and I'll give some keys out and I'll make sure it's all nice and fair and random. So I don't mind being harassed. I like to help people. Full stop. Really. If people can help me and the studio, then great. If you can't, then ping me and I'll see what I can do.
Jon, thank you again. We'll definitely have you back after PSVR2 launches. AJ, thank you for hanging out today as well. And Jon, we would absolutely stick around for another hour, but AJ and I actually have somewhere else to be, which is very uncommon for GamesCast. Usually when this is over, I'm like, and my day's over, going to bed.
We're like Discord. Let's go hang out in the Discord.
Right, but
I love it.
We got more work to do, man. We got 23 days. We're getting busy.
Yeah, when you got to hang out with Japanese developers, they're like, we need you to stay up late so that you can catch us at breakfast.
We didn't even talk about that one. There's one called Discordia or whatever, which looked like Minority Report.
Did you play Tokyo Chronos or Alteus, the prior two games in the series?
No.
I just hope this game is getting better. It's the third one in the series. The first one wasn't interactive at all. The second one was more interactive. I hope this one is extremely interactive. They're kind of feeling their way through VR, and so my fingers are crossed for this one big time.
I'm slowing the show down. No, it's a pleasure to be with you guys. You guys are doing an amazing job, and well done. Utter admiration for the last stretch to get you to this point. It's not long now. You got 20-something days. There's a whole new headset, a ton of new content. Your lives are going to be super busy. You really just utter admiration for this last stretch, which I tried to help with. We did give you another game, but that last stretch, I've got utter admiration for. Keep it up. You're doing an amazing job.
The last stretch was like 2.5 years. No one actually realizes just how long it was. But yeah, man, the cat.
You're alive.
All the cats are
Who's still here?
The cat's been dragging us through the last 2 years, and they've been nothing but supportive. Developers have been nothing but supportive. Everybody's been really just love the VR community. It's one big happy family. I couldn't be happier with where things are right now, and of course what's about to hit us.
Yeah, and I'm loving the chat questions. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I couldn't answer all of them. Your audience is amazing and very engaged, and I love to see that. And sorry I couldn't speak to everybody individually, really, because it's wonderful to be part of, invited like this and be part of.
Feel free to join our Discord. Links down below.
I very well may do that, but it might become a distraction, and I've got so little time.
Yeah, nothing gets done around here because of Discord. Trust me.
That is true.
But guys, if you don't have already subscribed to AJ's channel, make sure you do that. Follow Jon Hibbins over on Twitter at Windlands, and just a quick shout out to everybody who helps the channel run. We got Looper the Underground GameCat, who reminds us that you guys broke no records today. With the five euros, he said today matches the 4 record. You said other games, no multiplayer, developer in the room, and then you guessed.
I'll take it.
So that's 4. So close, but no cigar. Also, thank you to Sci-Fi GameCat Henry, who the timestamps will be late again, but thank you so much for putting them in. Jamie Au, who puts this thing up on podcast services of your choice. Top 25 podcast in the UK and top 100 in the US. Unbelievable. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you're listening right now, I don't think there were any sirens on my end. You must think I'm somewhere else today. And of course, all the moderators who make my life so much easier each and every day. Thanks everybody who supports us on patreon.com/withoutprogames. Thanks everybody who tipped in the chat. Thanks everybody who hung out in the chat. Helped these guys with 20 questions. And all of you who sat back, watched the show, and didn't say a goddamn word. We know you're out there, and we love you just as much. It is Monday. So let's cue the cat.
Cue the cat, Brian, because I want to say, see you guys on West Data Battle Mode. Bainbridge says, be well, everyone. Awesome. Tatum in the house tonight says, Mr. Hibbins, well done, sir. Looper, the Underground Game Cat, thanks you, Brian. Genetic Blasphemy, plain and simple, says, top gaming podcast. Games.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Lawrence.
Duh. We're not the #1 cooking podcast, Genetic Blasphemy.
Virtual strangers in the house tonight. What up, my West Day dude? He says, word. Robert Lawrence says, this was fun. I agree.
Sorry.
Nihilus Ride the Game Feline says, read Looper's tip, Bri. He got you covered on that already. Johnny Ripe off the Stray Cap says, thank you for joining again, John. Always awesome to see you. Orseek the Game Cat, I am Orseek, says, thanks, John. See you next Monday. I guess you have to do it now. Next Monday. Yeah. There you go. Brax Bro says, add an Ask John channel to the Discord. Mike Kelly VR says, I still play Dungeon Master at least once a year all the way through. LOL. I'll stop now. Endeavor One Inc. Much respect to Windlands. Shout out from another developers on the platform.
Developers from another mother.
Developers from another mother's. Zombie 5150 in the house tonight. Maybe he can just drop one in the chat right now. No bothering later though. B Tribble in the house tonight, doing God's work as always. Has been great to have you on the show, John. And I guess AJ and Brian were pretty good too.
Hey,
always doing God's work, B Tribble.
I don't know if we were pretty good. I mean, I think we were okay.
Yeah,
John was great.
You know.
Yeah.
That was great.
Jason Voorhees in the chat. Well, we love you too. Jason Voorhees in the chat was wondering if you can meow for us.
Meow. I've got two cats. I've got Luna and Lucy, and they provide all the meowing around the Hibbins household.
He's all meowed out.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Time to end the show. John, thank you again. Good night, cats.